three reds, right? If you can talk about
Yeah.
the cameras that you use and the lenses that you use
Yeah.
for the interviews, and then also for the
Yeah.
secondary B-roll and all that stuff.
So we were using, so the interview setup, I'll discuss that first because quite significant. It's a big part of the film is
Sure.
we began shooting Monstro, and then sort of midway through the production we went to Raptor. Just, it was the newer camera. I've got both. We just, we switched camera bodies at that point, but they essentially do a very similar job. They're both sort of 8K resolution, a full frame sensor. So on the main camera, the A camera, if you like, is shooting through a mirror box, which is why the person's looking straight down the lens, because they can see the director's face, the director neck reflecting in a mirror, which they see in front of the lens, called a mirror box. They are, and for the audience, you've then got someone engaging straight, talking straight to you, which is, quite a seductive way to shoot. But we wanted to shoot 8K on that purely because we wanted two frame sizes. We're shooting for Netflix, you have to have a very pristine 4K delivery.
Yeah.
So of course, if we're shooting 8K, we can push in. So we'll get, if the shot's on me now, we've got that at 8K, but we've also got that. This is actually something I did on Welcome to Earth, on the interviews we did on that as well, was shooting 8K for that reason on the interviews. And then we were running a B camera, which was on a slider, because we wanted it to be moving, because the B camera, its role was to move between seeing the person against this colorama backdrop, but then as you move off them, seeing some of the lighting, a bit of a kick off the light, or maybe the fluorescent tubes or something. So again, you're revealing the mechanism of it. And then the C camera, which to be honest was chosen for scale as much as anything else because it's so small. We had a Sony FX3, so another full frame sensor, which was
Mm.
straight below the mirror box. Reason being that it's so small with no viewfinder on the camera, we could get it straight below the mirror box. And actually the eye line looks identical because it's such a wide lens on the Sony FX3. We actually had a Nikon 18mm AIS lens, which is a Nikon lens from the 80s and 90s on there, which I love those lenses. So we had ingenue zooms on both of the cameras, and the ingenue zoom stayed static on the A camera. We picked a frame, we lit it, and we shot for that frame. But on the B camera, we were finding different frames. It was more, we'd do tight passes, we'd do a bit wider, but and then this fixed wide on the C camera, which was straight below the lens. So that would be ingenue lenses and these the Nikon manual primes from the 80s and 90s, which I love, and they match very nicely the ingenues. And then midway through the production, we switched to a Raptor, and at that point, it just meant we would do the same thing, but this time instead of the Monstro being the A camera, the Raptor was. And
Right.
then when we were out on the streets shooting cities, shooting stuff, like what people would call B-roll, but I don't really like the phrase B-roll so much.
I
But
know. I know. I
you know what I
agree with you.
mean? It feels like you're belittling it, and you're not. It's
Yeah.
but that stuff that's not these interviews we were on the Monstro as an A camera, but then we began to heavily utilize the gimbal as well. So we had the 4D gimbal, which we were using with a set of Leica primes, the Leica M08 primes, just
Mm.
very small, and they balance very nicely on that gimbal
Yep.
system. And we loved that. We absolutely fell in love with that for so many of the shots in the film. The fact that you've got something that can compete with the Steadicam, in some ways do a lot better than a Steadicam for certain situations, which is just ready to go all the time. I just loved it. You could just put down the A camera. I did all the gimbal stuff myself. So yeah, it would essentially be between the Monstro Raptor and the 4D, which was shooting with Leica primes. Then when we got into studio stuff, there's quite a bit of phantom in there. I'm sure you saw some extreme slow motion, light bulbs exploding and CD collisions and
Yeah.
burns. And we shot quite a bit on a phantom, just hours of fun, days of fun, exploding things and ripping things. You know,
I
we had a lot
bet.
of fun.
I bet.
I mean, you know, the film wanted to be fun. We didn't want it, we wanted it to entertain. We want people to watch the film, you know, lots of people to watch the film and get something out of it, not be bored, like be really engaged and debate these issues and see their place in these issues. And I don't know that you can do that with a film that's too austere and, you know, boring with a load of scientists shouting at you. You know, I don't think that's the way to get a result. So yeah, we'd shoot on the Phantom a lot. We had a lot of studio days on that. And then I was using a mixture of a lot of macro lenses. I've got I do a lot of studio stuff as well. I shoot a bit of commercials, and I would use borescopes. I have the new Laowa probes, the T8 probes by Laowa, a set of those, which I love. I was using like so many different macros, like a TLS 60mm macro was used a lot. I had another 90mm macro, a DZO 90mm macro. We used some Sigma primes when we needed the Cine primes, which we're using with diopters, where we needed the speed of 1.4, but also closeness. So we would use ARRI master diopters mounted on top of Sigma primes. We got quite carried away in the studio. And then, of course, being in the studio, we had any grip that we wanted. I was using a GFM telejib quite a bit to do sort of camera moves on. I've actually got a telejib with a slider on the nose, which I find very versatile because a bit like handheld, you can just put the camera anywhere, but you've got so much mass on it that it's just everything is incredibly immaculate and smooth. So I like to use that a lot when, you know, in something like a studio where you've got control. Yeah, and then lots, as you saw, we're leaning into colored lights quite a lot. We were using a lot of cream source lighting. We had Vortex 8s, Vortex 4s. I forget what the round one's called, the X, SpaceX. So yeah, a lot of Vortex, yeah, cream source lighting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different approaches in the film. I think that's kind of what's interesting about it. From the interviews, which are these quite elaborate set pieces with all these fluorescent tubes and, you know, to the stuff where we looking at the world around us in hopefully quite interesting ways. You know, even when we go out to Ghana and we're shooting on those beaches and then the markets. I mean, I loved that shoot. That was incredible, but also terrifying to see, you know, where all of our waste goes. So of course, all of this stuff we throw away ends up in China.
Third world countries.
Yeah, China used to be a big place, but they stopped. So I gather now Thailand is very big. Bits of South America, very, very big. I think in Ecuador, they've got major problems. And then, you know, we ended up going to Ghana because in terms of clothing waste, it's very visual. You know, you see it happen. It's all the clothing that we think, oh, it's going to a charity store, it's going to a new home or something. There's just too much of it. You know, the people in Ghana can't wear all that clothing. It's, you know, mountains and mountains and mountains of clothing. And unfortunately, a lot of the cheaper modern fashion, what people call fast fashion, is essentially made of plastic. So this stuff will not degrade, you know. So if it goes into landfill, it'll be there in thousands of years. It's still, it's plastic. So yeah, just kind of, yeah. Ghana had a huge impact on me as well. Actually seeing the end place, this place where we say, I'll throw something away. You know, we went to away. What does away look like, you know?